I thought our family vacation would finally bring peace between my Uncle Matthew 47 and his younger brother David. Instead, everything blew up when I caught Matthew in a shocking scandal. What started as a tense rivalry between siblings turned into a public meltdown on the beach, exposing betrayal, lies, and family secrets in front of everyone. Nothing will ever be the same after this trip. So this all went down last summer, when my family decided to rent a big villa in Croatia for 2 weeks. The idea was supposed to be simple: sun, sea, food, and finally some family bonding. But if you knew my Uncle Matthew 47, you'd know that peaceful vacation and Matthew don't belong in the same sentence. Matthew and his younger brother, my other brother David 44, have always had this weird rivalry going on. It's like they never grew out of their teenage pissing contests: who's fitter, who earns more, who has a better family. Every holiday dinner ends with them throwing passive-aggressive jabs, and my grandmother just sighs like it's background noise. Anyway, the trip started okay. The villa was gorgeous, perched up on a hill with a view of the Adriatic Sea. My cousins and I were excited to hit the beach. Matthew brought his wife, Claire, who honestly deserves a medal for putting up with his ego. David came alone. He divorced a few years back, and Matthew never misses a chance to rub that in. On the third night, after too much grilled seafood and too much wine, the brothers started in again. You know, Dave, Matthew said, swirling his glass, not everyone's cut up for commitment. Some of us can actually keep a marriage. David rolled his eyes and shot back. Yeah, some of us don't need to keep up appearances to feel relevant. The whole table went quiet. I remember my mum squeezing my dad's hand under the table, like, please don't get involved. The tension carried into the next few days. Matthew strutted around like he owned the villa, bragging about his new business deal, while David mostly hung with us younger ones, joking around and actually relaxing. Then came the night everything went nuclear. I couldn't sleep, so I went out on the balcony around midnight. From there, I had a perfect view of the poolside patio below. And what do I see? Matthew, my married uncle, making out with some random woman who was definitely not Claire. At first, I froze. My brain was like, no way, this can't be happening. But it was him, no mistake. His dumb gold watch literally glinted in the moonlight. I ducked back inside, heart pounding. I didn't know if I should tell anyone, or just pretend I didn't see it. The next morning, though, it got worse. David must have noticed something too, because he cornered me at breakfast. You were up late last night, right? Out on the balcony? He asked, his voice low. I nodded, not sure what to say. He leaned closer. You saw it, didn't you? Matthew and that woman? And that's when I realised that this wasn't just about Matthew's marriage. This was about giving David ammo in their never-ending rivalry. David's eyes lit up when I hesitated. He knew. He didn't even need me to confirm it out loud, and my silence was enough. Unbelievable, he muttered, slamming his coffee cup a little too hard onto the table. Claire was in the kitchen humming to herself, totally oblivious, and Matthew was still in bed nursing his hangover. I panicked. David, please don't drag me into this, I whispered. I don't want to be the messenger. He smirked, but there was bitterness behind it. Oh, don't worry, I won't, but he's not walking away clean this time. He's been lording his perfect marriage over me for years. Now I've got the truth. The whole morning, I felt sick. David kept giving me these knowing looks, like we were co-conspirators, while Claire chatted about booking a boat tour. My cousins were splashing in the pool, laughing, completely unaware of the storm brewing. Around noon, Matthew finally emerged, sunglasses on, bragging about how he barely feels hangovers anymore. David nearly choked on his drink. Yeah, maybe that's because you're too busy sneaking around to notice them, David said under his breath. What was that? Matthew snapped, lowering his shades. Nothing, just saying some people should focus less on pretending to be saints and more on keeping their house in order. It was a miracle Claire didn't pick up on the subtext, but I could feel the air crackling. That night, the whole family decided to go out for dinner at Seaside Restaurant. The place had fairy lights strung up over the terrace. Waves crashing just a few feet away. It should have been magical. Instead, it was a ticking time bomb. Halfway through the meal, David finally snapped. He leaned across the table, looking Matthew dead in the eye. So, Maddie, how's married life? Still as loyal as ever? Claire laughed nervously. David, that's such a weird question. Of course he is. I could see Matthew stiffen, his jaw clenching. What the hell are you getting at? David smirked and took a sip of his wine. Well, I think you know. The table went silent. My dad muttered, not here, David, but it was too late. Matthew slammed his fist on the table so hard the cutlery rattled. Don't you dare. Claire blinked, confused. Don't you dare what? David leaned back, savouring the moment like he'd been waiting his whole life for this. Don't I dare tell everyone what I saw last night by the pool. Claire froze. What are you talking about? My stomach dropped. I wanted to disappear. I had front row seats to the end of my uncle's marriage and the ultimate sibling showdown, and I was powerless to stop it. Matthew's face went red, then pale. You lying piece of... But David cut him off, raising his voice. Lying? Ask your nephew. He saw it too. And just like that, every eye at the table turned to me. The entire terrace went silent. Even the waves crashing against the rocks seemed to pause, like nature itself was holding its breath. All eyes were on me, and my heart was hammering so loud I swear David could hear it. Wait, what are you talking about? Claire asked, her voice trembling. Her fall covered midair, and she looked like she might faint. I swallowed hard. I saw it, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Uncle Matthew, he was with another woman by the pool last night. Matthew's face went through colours faster than a traffic light. Red, then pale, then a terrifying shade of purple. He slammed his palms on the table, rattling plates and glasses. Git. Why are you saying this here? David leaned back, smirking like he'd won the lottery. Because, dear brother, the truth doesn't care about your comfort. We've been dancing around this for years, and now it's public. Everyone gets to see who you really are. Claire looked stricken. Matthew, is this true? Her voice cracked, and suddenly, I felt horrible. This wasn't how anyone should find out. Matthew's eyes darted around the table. He muttered something under his breath, and then stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. None of you understand the full story. She meant nothing. It was just a stupid mistake. David's laugh was bitter. A stupid mistake. That's your excuse for kissing some random woman at midnight while married. Tell me you're joking. Matthew's hands were shaking. It wasn't planned. All right, I was. He stopped staring at Claire, who was now crying silently, covering her face with her hands. My dad's voice was booming now. Matthew, enough excuses. You embarrassed your wife and your family. You've made this vacation a nightmare. Matthew turned on David, rage in his eyes. And you think this is about loyalty? This is about you trying to ruin me because you've always hated me. You've been waiting for this moment forever. David shrugged, unapologetic. Guilty as charged. I've waited a long time. And finally, Karma handed me the mic. Matthew's chest heaved, and I could see the veins in his neck bulging. You don't get it. You never get it. You're petty and jealous, and everyone thinks you're better than me. But they're wrong. Claire said no, standing up. I trusted you, Matthew. I loved you, and this is how you repay me. The tension was so thick I could barely breathe. I felt like the villa itself was shaking under the weight of all this anger, betrayal, and humiliation. Then Matthew stormed off toward the villa, slamming the terrace door so hard I thought it would shatter. David sat back, sipping his wine, a self-satisfied smirk on his face. Well, he muttered, that's one way to start a vacation. Everyone else just sat there, stunned. Claire was crying, my cousins were whispering nervously, and I was stuck wondering if this family would ever recover or if we'd spent the rest of the week tiptoeing around an explosive secret. For the first time in my life, I realised that Matthew's rivalry with David wasn't just annoying, it was toxic. And now, it had pulled the whole family into a mess that no one could ignore. The next morning, the villa felt like a war zone. Everyone moved quietly, like even breathing too loud might trigger another explosion. Claire had gone to her room early, refusing breakfast. Matthew didn't come out until mid-morning, glaring at everyone like we were all guilty of his shame. David, of course, was smug. He lounged by the pool, sunglasses on, sipping a cocktail, clearly enjoying every second. My cousins and I tried to keep our distance, but tension hung over us like a storm cloud. Finally, my mom cornered me in the kitchen. What exactly did you see last night? She asked, whispering harshly. Her eyes were fierce but worried. I saw Matthew with that woman by the pool, I admitted, and she groaned, pinching the bridge of her nose. I didn't tell anyone, David already knows. Mom sighed. God, this is a disaster. Your uncle is going to explode if Claire finds out from someone else, and your father, he's not handling this well either. I felt a knot in my stomach. It wasn't just about Matthew cheating, it was about the sibling rivalry reaching a point where it was tearing the family apart. Later that afternoon, David decided to push things further. He cornered Matthew while the rest of us were at the beach. I overheard part of the conversation. You think hiding it makes you look powerful? David said, voice sharp. But everyone knows now, Matthew. Everyone, and I won't stop until Claire knows everything. Matthew's voice was low, trembling with anger. You don't get to play God here. This was my mistake, not yours. David laughed cruelly. Mistake? Oh, it's so much bigger than that. It's your arrogance. You've spent decades thinking you're better than me. Well, congratulations. Now everyone sees your true colours. I stayed hidden, heart racing. I didn't want to intervene, but I also felt responsible somehow. This was spiralling out of control. By evening, Claire confronted Matthew herself. She had overheard enough whispers and pieced it together. Matthew, is this true? Are you cheating on me? Her voice cracked, trembling with rage and heartbreak. Matthew froze. He tried to stammer, tried to make excuses, but Claire wasn't having it. Don't lie to me. I trusted you. How could you humiliate me like this in front of the whole family? Matthew's face was red, tears threatening to spill. I messed up. It was a stupid mistake. I never meant to. David appeared in the doorway smirking. You never meant to what? To ruin your marriage? Or to make me look like the idiot for all these years? Claire's sobs turned into cries of anger. Get out, she screamed at Matthew. I need space. I can't do this with you here. Matthew stumbled back toward his room, slamming the door. David shook his head, satisfied, and I realised something terrifying. This vacation wasn't just a scandal, it was a battlefield, and David had won the first round. By the next morning, the villa was in total chaos. Claire had packed a small bag and refused to speak to anyone but my mom. Matthew stayed holed up in his room, blasting music to drown out the angry whispers drifting through the hallways. David, of course, was wandering around like he owned the place, grinning every time someone shot him a nervous glance. Breakfast was unbearable. My cousins poked at the egg silently while my dad tried desperately to steer conversation towards something normal. So the boat tour today, he suggested, but the words sounded hollow, even to him. David leaned back in his chair, smirking. Boat tour sounds nice. Maybe we can all pretend everything's fine while Uncle Matthew practices his apology tour. Matthew's door slammed open. Dirty Dermot me, he shouted, storming into the kitchen. His hair was dishevelled, and his eyes were wild. Claire's absence made him look small somehow, like the ego he normally projected had been stripped away. She's not here to hear it, Matthew, David said calmly. And maybe that's a good thing. Wouldn't want her to see you make excuses. Matthew's face twisted in fury. You think you're clever, don't you? I've spent decades doing everything right, and you're just a petty little brother who's jealous of me. David's lips curled into a smile that sent shivers down my spine. Jealous? Of what? You trophy wife? You big house? Or maybe your constant need to one-up everyone around you? The truth's out now. Matthew, everyone sees the real you. Matthew froze, then his voice dropped. You're enjoying this way too much. This is supposed to be a family vacation, not some war zone. I watched the tension call tighter with every word. My dad finally slammed his hands on the table. Enough, Matthew. You've humiliated yourself and Claire. And David, stop acting like you're some hero. Both of you are tearing this family apart. Matthew's face went red. I didn't ask for any of this. You didn't ask for this? David shot back. You cheated, you lied, and now you're shocked that the family hates you. At that moment, my grandmother shuffled into the kitchen, shaking her head. Matthew, you fool. You've turned a vacation into a circus, and David, to stop gloating like this makes you better. It doesn't. You're both wrong. The room went quiet for a second. Matthew muttered something under his breath and stormed out again. David watched him leave, still smirking, like he'd won a battle but not the war. I sat there, heart pounding, realising just how deep the sibling rivalry ran. This wasn't just a cheating scandal, it was years of resentment, competition, and hidden grudges boiling over in front of everyone. By the afternoon, the tension had reached a point where even the beach felt unsafe. My cousins and I stuck to ourselves, sneaking into corners and whispering about how insane this had all gotten. Claire didn't return to the group, and Matthew stayed locked in his room, occasionally banging on the walls in frustration. It was clear that this vacation would leave permanent scars, and I had a front row seat to watch a family feud explode into something that might never fully heal. By day 5, the tension had reached a boiling point. The villa felt like a pressure cooker, and the only escape was the beach, but even that wasn't safe. Matthew and David had been avoiding each other, but the air between them crackled like static electricity, and everyone knew a confrontation was inevitable. That afternoon, my cousins and I wandered down to the shore, hoping for a bit of distraction. The sun was bright, the waves sparkling beautifully if it weren't for the fact that the family feud shadowed every step. Then we heard it, Matthew shouting. I said, "Get away from me, David." His voice was booming, carried across the sand. David, standing near the water with his arms crossed, didn't flinch. "No, come on, Matty, they're not going to hide anymore. Claire deserves the truth, and so does everyone else." Matthew stormed closer, fists clenched. "You're insane. You've been waiting for this moment your whole life. I will not let you humiliate me further." David took a step forward, a cold grin on his face. "Humiliate you? That's rich coming from the guy who can't even keep his marriage together." Claire appeared then, having followed quietly. Her eyes were red from crying. "Stop it, both of you," she screamed. "I can't handle this. I can't believe I ever trusted you, Matthew and David. This is cruel, letting it all get worse instead of just stopping." Matthew's face contorted with rage. "She doesn't understand. She never understands. You're all against me." David shook his head. "No, Mary, you're the only one against everyone else. You cheated, lied, and now you're shocked the family sees it." I stood nearby, frozen, as the argument escalated. My dad came running down from the villa, waving his arms. "Enough, both of you, stop this right now." Matthew spun toward him, wild-eyed. "You don't get it either. I'm the one being attacked." David snapped back, voice sharp. "You're attacking yourself. This is all you're doing. Own it." For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The waves paused, seagulls quieted, and the family just stared, caught in the middle of the sibling war. Then Matthew's knees buckled, and he sank into the sand, exhausted, furious, and humiliated all at once. Claire stood a few feet away, hands on her hips. "I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. You need to figure out your lives without me here." She stormed off toward the villa, dragging a small bag behind her. David watched her go, expression unreadable, before turning to Matthew. "Consider this a wake-up call. Maybe next time, you think twice before acting like a fool." Matthew didn't respond. He sat there in the sand, staring out at the water, defeated. It was the breaking point. No one said anything for several minutes. Even David, triumphant as he felt, seemed subdued now that the dust had settled. I realized then that the vacation was over, not just the trip, but any hope for a normal family dynamic in the near future. The rivalry had erupted, the scandal was out, and there was no turning back. The next morning was eerily quiet. The villa, once filled with laughter and clinking glasses, felt like a ghost town. Claire hadn't spoken to Matthew since the beach confrontation, and she spent most of her time in her room or walking alone along the cliffside trails. Matthew barely left his room except to grab food. His head hanging low like the weight of the world was pressing down on him. David, on the other hand, acted almost casual, as if nothing had happened, but I could see the satisfaction in his eyes. He had won the confrontation, and now he was letting Matthew stew in his own guilt. The family tried to salvage what remained of the vacation. My dad suggested a group boat trip to explore the nearby islands. My cousins and I hesitated, but eventually agreed it was better than staying cooped up inside with all the tension. On the boat, Matthew kept his distance, staring at the horizon like he was searching for an escape route. Claire finally spoke up, her voice calm but firm. "Matthew, we need to have a real conversation. No more excuses. I don't know if we can fix this, but I need honesty." Matthew's shoulders slumped. I screwed up. I heard you. I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, and maybe I don't even deserve it. I just..." He paused, struggling for words. "I never wanted it to happen, but it did, and now I have to live with that." Claire didn't say anything for a long moment, just stared at him, then nodded slowly. "Okay, we'll figure it out later, but right now I need some space." David, sitting a few feet away, made a rare comment without malice. "Maybe now you understand what it feels like to be on the other side, Matthew." Matthew nodded silently. I realized then that for the first time, the sibling rivalry had shifted. It wasn't about proving who was better anymore, it was about accountability, humiliation, and consequences. Over the next couple of days, the family tried to rebuild a fragile sense of normalcy. Meals were quiet, but no one argued. Matthew and Claire had tense conversations in private. David mostly kept to himself, though I could see he was satisfied that the truth was finally out in the open. I spent a lot of time observing, realizing how deep family dynamics run and how years of rivalry, resentment, and unspoken competition can erupt in the worst possible moments. By the last day of the vacation, there was still tension, but it felt manageable. Matthew and Claire weren't back to where they had been, but at least they were talking instead of avoiding or exploding. David had earned his victory in the eyes of the family, but even he seemed to understand that winning didn't erase the damage done. As we packed up and prepared to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that nothing would ever be the same. The cheating scandal and the sibling rivalry had left scars on everyone involved, but somehow surviving it together gave us a tiny, fragile sense of closure. Some vacations are about relaxation. This one was about revelation, confrontation, and learning just how volatile family relationships can be. And believe me, I'll never forget the way Matthew's world came crashing down under the Mediterranean sun.